Back to this portion of active living at the Orion Center. Fortunate again to have another Navy veteran. We have Joe Ziekowicz with us today. Joe is a veteran of World War II and has some interesting experiences, I'm sure, to talk about. Joe, welcome to our show.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, when exactly were you in the service?
I enlisted in '42.
Okay.
And after I enlisted, I went to Great Lakes for training.
Okay.
And after got my basic training, I went to Boston, Mass. I was going aboard a aircraft carrier, but it wasn't the Lexington at this time. It was another carrier that was being built.
Okay.
But the Lexington was sunk in the Battle of the Coral Sea. So the sailors that were up in Boston were prepared to go aboard the carrier. They petitioned the Navy to change its name to Lexington.
So there actually were two Lexingtons, one that had been sunk in the Coral Sea,
yeah,
and the second one
that you was being built.
Okay.
So after completion, while us fellows were at the headquarters stationed there, during the daytime we would go into the Navy base and go on fire watch.
Okay.
And this is what we did during the day, and then we come back in after 4 or 5 o'clock. We come back into the barracks there and then go on liberty.
Where was this, in Boston?
In Boston.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a good liberty town.
Yeah, let me tell you. Have you got time?
Yeah.
Boston's a nice town.
It sure is.
It's military.
Oh, yeah.
It's strictly military. But after the ship was being completed, then we finally had to go down to South America for the shakedown period.
Right.
We got part of the way down there and we lost one of the screws. So we had to go back to Boston.
When you say you lost the screw, did it actually fall off the ship?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
So I had to go back to Boston and they had to put on another one.
Okay.
It didn't take them long to do that. So after they got that completed, then our orders were to go to San Diego.
So how did you get to San Diego? Did you have to go through the canal?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And we got down into San Diego. We had to get prepared for getting the crews together. All the sailors were assigned different areas to have to go into, and then pilots or whatever.
Right.
And we was there for a short time. Then we went to Hawaii, and they completed getting this thing prepared.
Right.
Then we head off into the South Pacific. We got down into Tarawa. We was there for a short time.
Right.
And we got caught in the conflict at Tarawa. That was our first experience of combat. And let me tell you, that was brutal.
I bet.
The veterans down there hitting the shores, and a lot of them getting killed.
Right.
It's tragic because the tides weren't coming in just right. The fellas storming the beaches
right.
And
they step off those LSTs right in over their head sometimes.
Yeah, lost it. And so we was there for quite a while. Then consequently
Now your job, I assume that the job of that ship was to fly aircraft and support those troops that were going into shore.
Absolutely.
And they were bombing ahead of time.
Yeah.
Trying to soften up the beaches. I had an Army guy that I interviewed last week, and he was talking about how you guys had gone in and the airplanes had gone in and tried to soften up the Japanese that they were going in to fight.
Yeah, but the bad part about it was brutal. This is our first experience at combat.
Right.
This, I think, that it was just like a new life starting all over again, and we lost a lot of Marines storming the beaches.
Right.
And it was really pathetic.
Right.
But after they finally got that concluded, then we went back to Pearl Harbor again for a short time. Then we head off into the South Pacific again for patrol duty. We was on a lot of patrol duties.
Right.
And in fact, we run into a lot of combats there. as a matter of fact, our experience there, the Lexington has been in 13 combat missions,
Wow.
and we got a good taste of it. And
Now, what was your specific job on the
I
ship?
was I first went aboard. I was just a deckhand,
Okay.
and after I got on for a while, I had a good friend that I grew up with. He was already in the Navy, and he was in communication.
Okay.
Yes, they had me in gunnery shooting those 5-inch 38s,
Right.
and
right.
I said, "Boy, this is not for this boy." So he arranged to talk to the people in communication, see if I could get in communication.
Right.
So I become a radio man.
Okay.
Then the only bad part about it is when you start out there training, I get my training there on the ship, which is not, it's time consuming. I didn't get a chance to go to school to shorten my time up to get a rating.
Right.
So that when I go over there, I just been in a Radio Shack for a long time before I finally got my rating.
So you basically was on the job training.
Absolutely.
You had to learn the Morse code and all that stuff.
Yeah. But you know, I was Morse code for a while.
Right.
And then he had another job assignment for me. I went up in the radar plot.
Okay.
I had to go up there, and they got a great big screen there with all the operations going
Right.
on.
Right.
And I sitting over in the corner. I was responsible to copy the conversations between the people on the screen, giving us the information where are the ships and the planes and everything
Right.
else.
Right.
And what I had to do was abbreviate this stuff and record it,
Okay.
which was quite hectic.
In a battle, I would think it would be very hectic.
Well, it wasn't so bad. You try to abbreviate so much stuff,
Yeah.
and consequently, conversations were only between two people alone. Nobody interferes
Okay.
because it gets confusing.
Right.
So that's what was my responsibility doing that.
Now, did you have the board in the combat room where you have to write? You stand by the person writing on the board stands behind the board and writes everything backwards. Did you have that on the ship?
No, I didn't have that too much of that,
Okay.
but I was on that for quite a while, and then we was in conflict down in Majuro. We was down in Majuro on the island,
Right.
and we got hit by a suicide plane.
Wow.
And I was up in my, like I said, my responsibility. Those conversations that were copying this, and these officers were standing there looking at the screen and they were talking about it. And two of the officers standing and said, "Let's go out and watch operations." So they walked over to this great big hatch, a big heavy door.
Right.
They opened that up, and they just stepped out, and the suicide plane hit the ship, and you could see fire
Wow.
up around the door. So it jumped up.
Those two guys.
There was they run over there. First, it had two hatches coming in, one from the left, one from the right. Went over to the left side, and a couple officers was coming up the staircase. One was hit, got a shrapnel in his leg, and laying there. And the medic was there and tried to help him out.
Right.
Do just as much as we could do. Then got back up to the radar plot, and there was two fellows that went out that other hatch. One of them got killed,
Oh,
and the other, and that really
that's hard.
that tore me up right there.
tough duty.
But you do what you have to do. You're
Right.
going, doing your jobs, and consequently, when that was completed, we had to come back in to the island or back to Pearl Harbor for repairs again.
Now, when you were actually in battle with these suicide bombers, how many of those bombers were attacking you at any one time?
4 or 5.
Really?
But see, the reason, what makes it a little bit better is that we got other ships. You're in a group.
Right.
You're got 8 or 10 ships. You got 4 carriers,
Right.
and everybody's in fighter planes up there chasing them around, and we're
Right.
shooting them. They're coming in real low,
Right.
These
Right
planes
above the
were-
water coming in at you.
Yeah, and then we're crossfired into each other, and it's pretty hectic. But it was a lot of that, But it was just these missions that we kept going on all the time.
Now, how long actually were you, by the time you got to Hawaii,
Yeah.
how long were you actually in these battles?
Well, there was quite a few battles. We was in 13.
13 battles.
Yeah.
And most of those were fighting airplanes coming in at you.
In the Battle of the Coral Sea.
You were in that one too?
Yeah.
Wow.
And with these other ships, they competing against each other, you know.
Right.
And
right.
quite hectic it was. So I spent quite a time there in the Pacific. I had a lot of time in there.
So when this suicide bomber hit your ship, how many people did you lose in that particular battle?
We lost 47. We lost 47 and 227 injured.
Wow.
They were in sick bay.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's pretty hectic.
It is hectic.
Yeah, sure is.
I imagine it's a scary thing to see those guys coming at you like that.
Well, we go back to the States, up in Washington and Navy Yard up there,
right,
for repairs.
Okay.
We get our repairs and then we're back out again. And we stayed out there.
You go all the way back to Washington, D.C.?
No, Washington,
Washington State. That's right.
Yeah,
You're on the West Coast.
Seattle.
Right.
That's where we was in there for repairs. And consequently, a lot of those young fellas couldn't cope with it. They were jumping ship.
Right.
And they didn't want to go back again, and they slipped off, and finally they were picked up later on and did time, in jail, so whatever.
Right.
But
right.
we first went in, it was in 42.
Okay.
And I knew that I was going to get called into the service. And I said, the Army is not for me. So that's why I enlisted in the Navy.
But the Navy wasn't a picnic either, was it?
No, it was quite hectic.
Well, you've had something to do with I understand you've had a lot to do with the memorial here in Lake Orion.
Well, I'll give you a good example for that. When these fellows that were killed, they had to bury at sea.
Right.
We had our burials out there.
Right.
And I was standing there, I was one of them standing there, thinking, these fellas are buried at sea today. Their mothers and fathers don't know for 1 minute what's happening today. And I stood there and I was crying.
I believe it.
And I said, when I get home, I'm going to make it a point that these fellas are going to get that recognition.
Right.
And that's what I've been on all these years. We got our memorial over there, the 47 fellows that lost their lives.
Right.
Their names are engraved in bricks.
That's what I understand, and that's terrific.
And this in our memorials, it's just beautiful. We're having a lot of good luck, and
we have.
They make me feel pretty good doing that.
We have some people coming in tomorrow to talk about the memorial.
Are they?
Just about the memorial, right?
Oh boy, it'll be interesting.
Well, first of all, we want to thank you for your service. I know you've sacrificed a lot for this country, and we've kind of got to wrap it up now. We're getting close to the end.
Well, it's been a pleasure for me to be
Joe,
able
thank you very much for your service. Thank you very much for coming in for our interview today.
I know that if there was time available, I'd carry on for another hour. But I think I'll give you a pretty good
Great. Okay, thanks for joining us, and we're wrapping it up.
Hi, my name is Ed Ratzenberger. The Orion Center has a Seniors Advisory Council. It is a group of 12 people who volunteer to help the Orion Center staff with their efforts to provide the programs and services of the Orion Center for the seniors of our community. The center would like your assistance in order to help determine the activities and services that seniors prefer. The center is a comfortable and enjoyable place for you to visit, to meet with your friends, and to make new friends. You're welcome to provide your suggestions for activities and services, for your general observations, for your complaints, and for your positive comments. If you would like to give your thoughts to the Advisory Council, please stop by the Orion Center and deposit your comments in one of the blue boxes that the Advisory Council has made available. If you want to include your contact information, we will respond to you within a few days. Or if you prefer, we also welcome and value anonymous comments. All contributions will be discussed. We hope you will respond, and we thank you in advance for your help. It is a pleasant place to enjoy and does not cost a penny to be a member. Membership in the seniors group is free. Thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing from you and to meeting you. Take care.
Good afternoon and welcome to this portion of Active Living at the Orion Center. Today we're interviewing more veterans, and today we're very fortunate to have Roberta Salisbury with us.
Hi.
Roberta, welcome to our program.
You're welcome.
And we'd like to talk to you a little bit about your military career. How long have you been, were you actually in the service?
Actually, I was in 7 years active and 3 years reserve.
Okay, and what branch of the service?
U.S. Navy.
Navy.
Yes.
I can relate to that because I had 4 years myself. But can you tell us where you were sent for training, and were there a lot of women involved in that training process, or were you mixed in with the guys?
No, back in the 70s, it was the women had their base in Bainbridge, Maryland, 10-week program, and I went in January. It was no different here than Michigan, their weather out there. The spring came a little bit earlier. I went from January till April for boot camp, and boot camp was easy. I thought it wasn't a problem. We had schoolwork every day and PT classes and swim, and we got to go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania for our day off. They bussed us out there, and graduated from boot camp and was stationed at Bainbridge, a company called Eptoconis. What we did was recruits graduating from A school, we gave them orders to go either ship or shore.
Now, when I was in boot camp, actually, we went through officer candidate school, but we had to, we had a hull of a ship that was actually in a swimming pool, and we had to make sure that we pumped all of the water out of this ship and put mattresses up against the hole in the side of the ship to make sure that it didn't sink. And obviously, when we went through, the ship sank. So I just wondered if the women had to go through that same experience.
They do now.
Do they?
They do it now, yes, and they do it also in the reserve centers.
I think we used to have these pumps called JP 500 pumps, and if the line got kinked, instead of pumping water out of the hull, it would pump water into the hull. Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't a lot of fun.
No, and
anyway,
it was cold.
Yeah. So anyway, tell me about once you got out of boot camp, what kind of assignments did you get?
My first assignment was in 18 months. I was stationed in Bainbridge. I did clerical, answered the phones, assisted the senior petty officers. We did fundraiser. We put plays on for the active duty personnel, their children, and things like that at Christmas time. We had sports. We had one afternoon, everybody participated in PT, so we either played basketball or softball and swam and stuff. And I also got on the pistol team while I was in Bainbridge. We had an indoor range, and there was approximately 20 young women all learning how to shoot. And I already knew how to shoot. I was raised on a farm, and I could handle a weapon. And we had some girls that were really nervous. Some of them put a few holes in the table. And so it was fun, and I was able to make the pistol team, and I traveled a little on the East Coast going to different matches.
Yeah.
And stuff, and was eligible. I went to the 5th Naval District tournaments in Dam Neck, Virginia, and was the only woman there. Had a few strange looks like, you should probably be home having kids or something. You shouldn't really be out here on the range. But it was all in fun, and I had a great time.
Well, when I was in the Navy, we went to, I was also brought up in a country environment and had a chance to do a lot of shooting. And I was extremely disappointed when I went through officer candidate school, because when they said, okay, you're going to go out and shoot, and they had 22 caliber pistols versus shooting a 45. Yeah. So I was a little disappointed. I thought we'd really get to shoot some 45s, but we went out and only shot, I don't know, maybe 75 to 100 rounds maximum.
Yeah. We used 45s.
Did you?
Yes, we did.
Oh man, it sounds exciting.
It was. I had a great time.
Now, did you get the kind of 45 that was that was customized so that
Match, yes.
exercised, I guess I should say,
Yep,
right?
we had match 45s when I made the team. Everybody was issued match 45s.
Fantastic.
Strictly for match shooting.
That sounds like great duty.
It was. It was great duty. I really liked it. And after Bainbridge, I was stationed in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
Oh my.
Great
What a
duty.
shame.
What a shame. That was really hard duty.
Yeah.
I made Petty Officer 3rd Class, and I was assigned to be the Master at Arms of the Women's Enlisted Barracks. It's approximately, I think I had 230 women living in the barracks, right from Chief, which was an E7, down to E1.
And you were an E3
I
and
was
you were in charge of the
E4.
barracks? E4. Wow.
Oh, it was pretty experience for a 19-year-old at the time.
So how did you handle the E7s?
She was my worst person in the whole barracks
I
because she
thought it
always
might be.
she always complained that all the other people they're too noisy, and she was old in my experience. She was probably in her 40s, you know. Not
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, no, it
How
was
old can
terrible.
you be?
And she always complained. She says, well, you know, they were running upstairs, and I'd get calls at late at night to have to come in, go up, you know, do my rounds, and say, okay, you got to settle down. You can't be running up and down the hallways. I know you're only 18 years old, and you know, and you got a lot of life. I said, but you know, you got to take respect for the senior personnel in this barracks.
Right. Now, did you also do the inspections of the barracks?
Yes, we had inspection once a week. Had to pass inspection, or you end up with extra duty, and we did well. We never end up with extra duty. We always passed inspection. I had a great crew working with me. I had 6 girls that worked. We worked like a swing shift, so many 8 hours on a shift, and then we switched days and stuff like that.
We used to have the famous white glove inspections. Did you get that?
We
where
had those.
You'd have to go through and they would check all over everything to make sure there was no.
Yep,
no,
top of the door frames.
You got
and,
it.
Oh, the window frames. Yep, and yeah, we had those too. It was quite an experience. When I was in Pearl, I saw the aircraft carrier come in. It was the Lexington, I believe, and you could see her 5 miles off, and she just, you know, the closer she got, the bigger she got. And
right, right.
that was quite an experience. I'd never seen a ship that big.
And I assume you probably, when you were there, you went to the Arizona Memorial.
Yes, several times.
Yeah.
That's.
It's a moving experience,
It is
isn't
a
it?
very moving experience.
Yeah, I've been out there a couple times, and it is a moving experience.
Yeah, I served honor guard for a Memorial Weekend at the National Cemetery there once too. 1 week, one tour out there, and I also seen the Vietnam POWs come back,
Okay.
which was really hard.
So you were there during
they-
during that period of
During
time.
that period of time,
Okay.
they flew them in, and it was probably one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Really.
Young men that were 20.
Right.
You know, they looked like they were 80. It looked like pictures I'd seen for the concentration camps for World War II.
Wow.
So that was probably one of the worst experience I think I had was seeing them guys come back.
Well, we've interviewed several people here, and you know, after going to war, it certainly changes people's personalities a bit.
It does. It does. It was a really, you know, I didn't think people could do that to other human beings, and you know, even after World War II, you figure, well, that can't happen again, but
Right.
it did. It happened.
Well, I interviewed one guy. He said, you know, World War II was supposed to be the last great war, right?
It's supposed to be.
But guess what?
And we've
it's
had
still going on.
Still going on, and probably
Right.
will forever.
And you know, obviously, we obviously thank the veterans for taking part in protecting our country, and I know you've played some role in that.
A small role, but mostly it's the men that's really out there out there in the fields, and I know now we have women on the ship, so now it's men and women on the ship. So
Right.
to do it nowadays, and I wished if I would have stayed in, I think, and done on 20, I definitely would have been on a ship somewhere.
Right.
Because that seashore rotation would have came up, and I would have been on a ship. So.
Well, I was like you. I was in 4 years and never aboard a ship.
Never, yeah, neither was I. Only got to tour them in Hawaii, so that was
Right.
nice.
How about submarines? Did you ever get on a
I
submarine?
did get on a submarine. It was a diesel.
Oh,
It was harbored in Pearl Harbor. I lasted about 8 minutes. I think I must have got caught because I told them I had to get off like right now. Their lunchroom, their little cafeteria could only seat like 2 people, and there was probably 6 or 7 of us going through the tour.
right.
And and it was so small. And I was like, oh, I don't know how you guys do it, but I really got to leave.
Especially the old conventional subs.
Right, this was old.
Yeah, these guys were sleeping on top of torpedoes, and the amount of space, I don't know if you saw the space between the bunks,
Right.
but the space between the bunks is about this high, and you have to make up your mind before you go into to sleep at night whether you're going to sleep on your stomach or on your back.
Right.
Because you couldn't turn over once you
Oh,
got in there.
Yeah, that I
So
definitely
that
would
sub
not
duty
do.
on the old conventional subs was pretty tough, but the new nuclear subs, it's a lot different. I don't know
Never
if you
toured
got-
one. Nope, never been able to get on one of those.
I got a chance to go on board one of the new ballistic
Oh.
boats, and with the missile silos inside, and it was quite a spectacular scene. It was like walking into Star Wars, with all of the electronic equipment that they had, and we got a chance to go on board because we used some of the same techniques to track submarines as our submarines used against the Soviet subs. So
Wow.
it was kind of interesting.
See, after I left Pearl Harbor, I was went to Great Lakes for some schooling, and I was stationed in Naval District Command in Detroit for recruiting duty, or on staff for recruiting duty.
Detroit,
Detroit. So
All
I got to
right.
come home.
fantastic. So how long were you actually doing the recruiting job?
I was on staff, so I didn't go out in the field. I was there for almost 4 years.
Okay, 4 years in Detroit. Boy, that
4
sounds
years in
like-
Detroit, yep.
Well, I spent 10 years working in downtown Detroit,
Oh.
so I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, because I went from sea to shore, and this was my shore duty. So,
Okay,
and
so sea duty was considered to be Hawaii?
sea duty was Hawaii.
Wow, that's
Sea
pretty
duty.
good sea duty.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, it was.
So when you were in Hawaii, did you get a chance to, I assume you got a chance to travel around the island and see
Oh,
some
yes.
of the great things that are going on there?
Yes, I took, right before I left, I took almost 2 weeks leave, and my mother flew over, and so we toured the island, did the tourist thing, and we didn't go to the big island, we just stayed on the main island at the time, and
Right.
just went around and seen, I took her to the Arizona, and took her to some of the bases, and showed her, especially at Hickam, there still had walls with bullet holes in them
Right.
from the attack.
Right,
So we got to be able to do that together.
wow. Sounds exciting.
It was.
So what's your overall impression? Should every young lady go into the service, or is it just for a certain few?
I think everybody should go. Everybody that turns 18 and graduates from high school, I think they should do a 2-year tour. Just it's an experience.
Right,
And a lot of people don't know what they do when they get out of high school.
right.
They bum around, they go take a few classes. Go in the service, you may find something you really like, and learn a trade and stay in.
But in addition to that, you also have some benefits in terms of additional education that you can get.
That-
I assume the GI Bill is still
Right.
in effect?
It's not really called the GI Bill anymore, but they do have a program set up. So if you go in, you pay so much, and the government pays the bigger part, and you put money away to go to college after you get out.
Okay. Well, we're just about at the end of our time, and I certainly want to thank you for coming on our program today and sharing your Navy experiences.
You're welcome.
Thank you.